Hey guys, and welcome to a new Dungeon Defenders 2 video. I'm your host Mr. Peter, and I'm here to explain to you guys what each ancient power buffs are. If you want to know what towers and heroes to use during your resets, that will be on a different video, which will be coming very soon. Alright, let's get right into it. To access your ancient power menu, you want to go to your inventory, and then power tab, and voila, you are here. Ancient power buffs are global passive that benefit you and the team, so anyone in your lobby will receive the additional stats for the rest of the match. Every time you ancient power or reset, you gain a point, and it's up to you on whatever buff you want to obtain. When you hover over the buffs, underneath it there will be a small description of the buff. Most of them are self-explanatory, but like I said, I'll go through each buffs and explain what each of them do. The maximum amount of points you can have for each buff is 5. I'll put each point value on the top right of the screen so you guys can see it and get an idea of what each point tier is worth. The first one is Ancient Ability Power. This increases your ability power. This is great for spellcasters and mages like the Apprentice or the Gun Witch. The next one is Ancient Heroic Power. This increases your hero damage. This is great for the Monk, so if you're running as the Monk, you definitely want to have this buff. The next one is Ancient Health. This increases your hero's health, definitely useful. It passively gives you more health without equipping any health gears. The extra health does make a difference. I highly recommend obtaining this buff. The next one is Ancient Resistance. This one is basically damage reduction. You take reduced damage from enemies' attack. Honestly, it's a hit or miss. It's good earlier on, but the higher you go in onslaught, the more damage the enemies deal. Assassins still delete you very quickly, siege rollers still one-shot you, and quickly still smack you very hard. If you play as a tank, you'll definitely notice the damage reduction. However, I have no clue how a tank performs in floor 900 or above, but in my floors, currently at 709, tanks do pretty well against headstrong assassins. If you're playing as a glass cannon like the Monk, you probably want to skip this buff, but if you're playing as the Barb, you should consider having the extra resistance. The next one's Ancient Lifesteal. Your primary and secondary attacks heal you for a percentage of damage dealt. A fantastic buff. It's really strong, and here's a video to demonstrate the buff. As you can see, I have low health, but once I attack someone, my health comes back very quickly. And if you have Frostfire, that auto procs the lifesteal. Really good stuff. The lifesteal is based on a percentage of how much damage you can deal, and the Monk can dish out crazy damage. This buff only works for heroes who auto attacks, so any mages or spellcasters will not benefit from this buff. The next one is Ancient Fortification. This increases your defense's health. Pretty straightforward. Ideally for blockades, the more health it has, the tankier it can be. Also, you get a small boost of damage if you're using the Shard Vampiric Empowerment. Nothing game changing, just a small boost of damage. I can tell you now that not many players use blockades in higher onslaught because they're very fragile, so you can give this buff a miss. The next one is Ancient Destruction. This increases your defense power. Very important, especially if you want to push higher in onslaught. You want to max your defense's damage as soon as possible. The next one is Ancient Strikes. This increases your defense's range. A nice buff, but once you have a Gilded Deadly Strikes, you already have enough range. I don't think you'll need any more. The next one is Ancient Builder. This decreases your build time during combat phase. If I had to be honest, this is not a good buff. I highly recommend having the Shard Construction and gild that Shard. The downtime is reduced by 95%, which is insane. 95% is clearly better than 10%, so I don't think this buff is necessary, so you can ignore it. The next one is Ancient Respawn. This reduces your respawn time. If you have this as a max buff, it reduces your death timer to 6 seconds from 9 seconds. You'll be very surprised the amount of time those extra few seconds can save you. Very underrated, I highly recommend getting it. The next one is Ancient Defense Critical Damage. This increases your defense crit damage, pretty straightforward. The next one is Ancient Defense Critical Chance. This increases your defense crit chance. Again, pretty straightforward. Always try to max your defense's damage as soon as possible, so get these two buffs as soon as possible. The next one is Ancient Hero Critical Chance. This increases your hero's crit chance, fairly straightforward. The next one is Ancient Hero Critical Damage. This increases your hero's crit damage, also fairly straightforward. Remember, ancient power buffs are global passive, so everyone in your lobby will benefit from the buff. You can stack these buffs with other players in the lobby, however, there is a cap on these buffs. It's hard to picture this, so it's best to visually explain it to you guys. If there are 4 players in the lobby and player 1 has 5 points into Ancient Destruction, everyone in the lobby will benefit from the buff. Now if player 2 has 3 points into Ancient Destruction, the buff will stack with player 1's buff, and now there should be 8 points into Ancient Destruction. However, if player 3 has 5 points into Ancient Destruction, only 2 points will stack as there's a cap of 10 points per buff, so the 3 leftover points that player 3 has will not be usable. This applies to all of the buffs. Now you guys understand what each buff can do. Now the question is, what buff should I get first? I personally would prioritize Ancient Destruction first. The more defense power, the better. Next I would go Ancient Defense Critical Damage and Ancient Defense Critical. Like I said earlier, max your defensive damage as soon as possible. And lastly, I will go for Ancient Lifesteal. You saw in the video, it's really good. Most players do stop at Ancient Power 30, that means you can have 6 maximized buffs. You already have 4 buffs, now choose your last 2 buffs wisely. I advise to avoid Ancient Builder and Ancient Fortification because they're rubbish. If you're not happy with the buff that you have chosen, you will always have the option to reset your points at a cost of 200 Defender Medals. Alright, that'll be the end of this video. Hopefully this video has helped you clear any confusion you had with these buffs. If you did enjoy this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more DD2 content. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.